I'm going to show you a little edit in Lightroom to play with some masking to help amplify some of your close-ups. All right, so I want to show you some masking. It's a great way to kind of bring contrast, bring saturation to a particular part of the eye. So I've got a few examples here. Is Miss Hernandez from Guidance, and I took this photo facing the window, so you can see the reflection of the window in her eye. That way I got some nice natural light, so it's nice and clear. Notice how her eye is clear, and it's a narrow depth of field, so the background fades off into a blur. Okay. When you're looking through your photos, you want to try to make sure that the eye is nice and clear. I'll give you an example here where it didn't work out as I had hoped. This is Ms. Graham, also in Guidance, but take a look. See where the focal point is. Where it's totally in focus is actually just a little bit on her cheek and her nose, and her eye is a little bit out of focus. So unfortunately, that's not a good choice for something like this. You do want to make sure that the eye is nice and crystal clear. Okay, so with that in mind, we're going to go into a little bit of an edit. Okay, so over here on the right-hand panel, we've got a masking panel right here. And if I open up that masking panel, I have a few options. One, there is AI that will help mask off either the subject, the person, right? So you can see it would mask off the person, it could mask off the background, things like that. So that's definitely an option. That's something we'll play with. There's another option here in terms of masking with the brush, a radial gradient and a linear gradient. So we're going to play with a few of those. Okay, so first up, I'm going to do a radial gradient. Okay, so that's like a circle. And I'm going to focus in on bringing that circle to mask out her iris specifically. Okay, so with that selected as a mask, now I can go into this editing window and play with a few things. So if I wanted to bring some more contrast, to have some more depth to the differences in the eye, you can play with that. One thing you might want to do is her eyes are already quite blue based on the blue window light, but if you wanted to bring the temperature down just a little bit so you can see it's even a little bit more blue, and play with the saturation a bit, just a little bit more. All right, with this one you got to be have a sort of a light touch with it. There's before, right, and there's after. Okay, if you do it too much, it looks totally fake and it's not as great. So you want to make sure that you're doing that. Maybe I'm going to bring up some of that clarity so you can see that depth that's starting to happen in the eye, which is great. Okay, now here is my masking panel. I'm going to add more masks than just that one. So that was just the first one. The next one I'm going to do is I'm going to use the brush. So I'm going to take this brush and I want to paint in just like the highlight of her hair. Okay, so I'm going to bring this highlight of her hair, and using that, I'm going to bring the exposure up just a little bit, just to brighten that one streak of hair in the foreground, because in a second, I'm going to do the opposite and I'm going to darken in the background, so I want that contrast. Okay, so that's my second mask. So I've got my iris, and now I had a strand of her hair, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create another mask. And let's see how this works. The background auto selects the background, so often it works quite well, but sometimes it doesn't work quite as well. So let's see if it can auto detect the background. It takes a second to kind of process and think about it. All right, and it did an okay job, but not a great job, because if you take a look, it interpreted part of her hair as the background, which I don't really want. Okay, so I tried it. So I'm going to take this mask right here, and I'm going to delete the mask. I'm going to go Control, click on that mask, and I'm just going to delete that background mask. Okay, let's try it a different way. Okay, another way that we can try it in terms of adding mask, it auto detected the person. Okay, so I can click on the person itself for creating the entire person. Okay, and so I can create that mask for the whole person. Okay, so that took into account her hair and everything, which is great. So, but I want the background. So I'm going to, with that selected, I'm going to go Command and I, and it actually selects the inverse. So now I've got the background, okay? So what I want to do now with the background selected, I want to bring down the exposure in the background to kind of darken it out, okay? So it's not quite as bright, and I can bring that contrast in, okay? All right, so there you have it. There's my the difference in the background. Okay, so we can kind of see the difference before and after. All right, I'm going to go back in with another brush and just paint in here. That seam stood out a little bit for me, so I'm just going back into that seam, and I'm going to darken that just to have it set back a little bit. Okay, so there you go. So now you can see the difference between before and after. All right, so some subtle changes, some more intensity to the iris itself, some highlights on the face, some darkening of the background. All right, and that's all I'm going to play with for this image. So once I'm done, I'm going to export this edited version. So I'm going to go to this share button up at the top right. I'm going to go to JPEG large, and I'm going to add it into I'm going to go back into my huge human faces in my thaw space, and I'm going to export that, okay? And then that is the image that you can put out into your Google Drive. All right, so give it a try. Masking is so much fun, playing with the exposure to lighten and darken certain areas. It's a great edit to try.